Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Welcome to the Saskatchewan Legislative Chamber, where we will witness the installation of the 23rd Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. Bienvenue à cette cérémonie qui donne à la Saskatchewan un nouveau représentant à Sa Majesté la Reine. I would like to begin the program by acknowledging that the land upon which we gather this afternoon is Treaty 4 territory and home of the Métis. In a moment, I will ask you to rise for the entrance of their honors and the official party. When the vice-regal and official parties get to their places, the vice-regal salute will be played. I would remind you that the vice-regal salute comprises of portions of our royal and national anthems and is played but not sung. I would also ask that you take a moment to please turn off your cell phones. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise if you are able. Their honors, the Honorable Russ Morasti and Mrs. Donna Morasti. Please join in the singing of God Save the Queen. Following this singing of our royal anthem, please remain standing for an honor song performed by the Kawakatus Boys. Well done. Please.
Ah!
Please be seated. Your Honours, Premier Moe, Chief Justice Richards, former Lieutenant Governors Haverstock and Solomon Schofield, former Chief Justice Klebeck, Mr. Speaker, members of Saskatchewan's Executive Council, Mr. Miley, members of Her Majesty's Privy Council for Canada, Chief Justice Popescu and members of Saskatchewan's judiciary, members of the Legislative Assembly, senators, National Chief Bellegarde, Vice Chief Lerat, President McCallum, ladies and gentlemen. Canada is, of course, a constitutional monarchy in which Her Majesty the Queen is our head of state, and she's represented in the federal jurisdiction by Her Excellency the Governor-General, and in the provincial jurisdiction by the Lieutenant Governor. It is the Lieutenant Governor who gives royal assent to bills passed by the legislature and who ensures continuity in governance of our province. Le lieutenant-gouverneur est responsable à veiller à ce que le Saskatchewan ait toujours un premier ministre. Le lieutenant-gouverneur convoque, prorogue et dissout l'Assemblée législative. Il prononce le discours de trône et donne la sanction royale aux actes de l'Assemblée législative. And while His Honour was sworn in as our 23rd Lieutenant Governor on the 18th of July in order to fulfill these constitutional duties, we are gathered here this afternoon to ceremonially commemorate His Honour's installation, to invest him with the Saskatchewan Order of Merit, and to collectively welcome him as Her Majesty's representative in our province. The Lieutenant Governor, during his tenure, travels throughout Saskatchewan, is patron to numerous humanitarian endeavours, as well as artistic, sporting, and service organizations. He is also the fount of our provincial honours system, and as such, the Chancellor of the Saskatchewan Order of Merit, and he regularly presents provincial honours to deserving Saskatchewan citizens, as well as federal honours on behalf of the Governor-General. And thus, ladies and gentlemen, the Lieutenant Governor encourages and celebrates our province's rich history and recognizes the people and organizations that make Saskatchewan such a great place to live. And now Mr. Dutch Lerat, Vice Chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, will present His Honour with a gift of welcome.
Your Honor, on behalf of the 74 First Nations Chiefs Councils and our 140,000 First Nations citizens, I present you this in commemoration of this historical day, and I personally am honored to be part of it. Take a seat.
The President of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, Mr. Glenn McCallum, will present His Honour with a Métis sash. The origins of the sash reflect the diversity of the Métis experience. The woven sash was used by the Métis as a practical item of clothing and has become the most persistent element of traditional Métis dress, symbolizing identification and pride for Métis people. His Honour will now be presented with the collar as the Chancellor of the Saskatchewan Order of Merit. The collar displays the emblems of the Saskatchewan Order of Merit and the Saskatchewan Volunteer Medal, linked by two elements of the Saskatchewan Shield of Arms, and it is suspended with a medallion with the full armorial bearings granted by Queen Elizabeth II in 1986. This collar was presented to the province of Saskatchewan in the year 2000 as a Millennium Gift. His Honour will also be formally invested with the Saskatchewan Order of Merit by the Chief Justice of Saskatchewan, the Honourable Robert G. Richards. At this time, I call upon Chaplain Tom McCullough, RCMP F Division, and Elder Abel Charles from Grandmother's Bay to come forward to give their blessing. Please rise.
Nimidhigawin tstimas anoch kagisagak. Pagusidem megawian taimi hasian tutnauigan tstimas tapahti muinigis. Kusamaga kapag patapiskuidanano tita tayamiha. Siman togichigisago kayain. Mamaskats medosnoma minagotagisaga kamidiak. Kinaskumetnan. Tapahti muinigis kapi nata mustatak. Matsaganitnan gatsit niujak, nisuisenan maga kiida. Kiidakin sokisen. Kakitakin kaskihtaan kiida. Pakusiidemitnan maga. Tässä uidemat. Awan niistau. Kakstiidihtaa kun tekuttakin suin. Kestiidem. Sawiidem. Tätä ajak. Tätä tuottaako tätä toskiuinua. Tätä kesken ohtahatsak. Minä dana. Ja kun ne koko, sauitemiksi manto. Minä ne mamtu niitä manalak, awassak, uskajak, minä kakidavat sit nuoki tie ja kota, omatte pääskään. Ja kun ne minä sauitemek, kesken ohtahiksi manto. Minun kota huni ganjok, miksi tuota huni ganjok, siipatta puok niin pauak, kesken ohtahik, siitoskaviksi sauitemiksi manto. Tämä viitsihi kuahko, tuskiiti, tahko tämän setiisi viitsihi kuahko. Kun se mäkä viimas kavissihinään, pikiskin ohtahinään, ne päätsuinnak. Ne voit sitä kuiksikiitimitäksi manto. Kun se omisipä kun siitä muak, jes muak, kekossu in Christ. Amen.
His Honor, members of the House, distinguished guests, elders of our First Nations family, on behalf of the force, please receive this blessing. Almighty and kind Creator, giver of life, today we come to you with deep gratitude in our heart for life and all the gifts that you give us each day. What an honor to call upon you on behalf of our community and to know that we not only can, but are invited to ask for your presence in our midst. We remember the late Honorable Thomas Malloy and his family. May all that was of value from his life be entrenched in our world today. Today, we lift to you our new Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan, Russell Morasti, his loving spouse, Donna, and their children. Grant abundant blessing upon Russ and his family. I ask that you will bless his honor with wisdom to discharge his duties of his office, strength to weather the storms of leadership with determination. Bless him with the strength of character to continue being a person of integrity that he is, and the compassion that will enable him to be a leader who is redemptive, restorative, and who sees the person in the people. We pray also for Russ's wife, Donna, and their children. Grant them continued strength to navigate their new environment, peace in the midst of any uncertainty, and an increasing capacity to enjoy all the adventures and joys that life will afford them. I implore your blessing on the diversity of people who make up Saskatchewan. May the words of our mouths, the thoughts in our hearts, and our actions together honor you and build each other up. This I ask from you, who is known by many names, who I know as Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Please be seated. I now call upon the Speaker of the Saskatchewan Legislative Assembly, the Honourable Mark Docherty, for his remarks. Mr. Speaker.
Your Honor, as Her Majesty's representative, the Lieutenant Governor is an integral part of the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan. In our system of governance, bills passed by this Assembly become law only after they receive the royal assent by the Queen's representative. Your Honor, the duly elected members of the Legislative Assembly have affirmed allegiance to our sovereign. Her Majesty the Queen is the longest-serving monarch in our history. Her devotion to duty, unselfish labor, and her unmatched concern for the welfare of the people of Canada for nearly 70 years now has been an example to us all. Pursuant to this affirmation of loyalty to the Crown, we assure you of our support as you assume your duties as Her Majesty's vice-regal representative in our great province. As Speaker, it is my privilege to welcome you and to congratulate you on behalf of the Legislative Assembly.
It is now my privilege to call upon the Premier of Saskatchewan, the Honourable Scott Moe, to give his remarks.
Your Honor, Chief Justice Richards, Mr. Speaker, legislative colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your legislature. Your Honor, on behalf of the Government of Saskatchewan, on behalf of the people of Saskatchewan, I offer warm and heartfelt congratulations to you and to your family on this very special occasion. We're grateful someone so accomplished and experienced has agreed to serve as Her Majesty's Vice-Regal in Saskatchewan. And we are confident that you will carry out the duties of Lieutenant Governor with integrity and diligence, building on the extraordinary legacy of those who have served before you. Today, I wish to thank and remember His Honour Thomas Malloy, our 22nd Lieutenant Governor. And we again extend our deepest condolences and prayers to Mr. Malloy's family, and we thank him for his service to our province. It's been said that the Crown is the source and the foundation of Canada as a sovereign state. Her Majesty, through her representative, the Lieutenant Governor, summons and dissolves legislatures, delivers the throne speech, and gives royal assent to our laws. But we know the duties of Lieutenant Governor extend far beyond the walls of this Assembly. Your Honor, you will be called upon to serve as Her Majesty's representative in the community, in all of our communities. You'll be asked to attend to these duties with the same commitment, the same compassion and generosity that Her Majesty has brought to her duties for more than 60 years. Sir, it is a great responsibility. But you are no stranger to responsibility. Having served as the most senior Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer in our province of Saskatchewan. You worked in every province and every territory during your distinguished career with the RCMP. And you served in so many communities right here in Saskatchewan. I have no doubt that you love this province dearly and you want only the best for its people. And I believe Queen Elizabeth shares these very same sentiments. Her Majesty last visited Saskatchewan in 2005 on the occasion of our province's centennial. She attended a ceremony at the First Nations University of Canada in Regina, where she presented a stone from Balmoral Castle in Scotland. Her Majesty stated that that stone symbolizes the rights of First Nations peoples, reflected in the treaties signed with the Crown during her reign, and is a reminder of the special relationship between the sovereign and all First Nations people. Today, that crucial relationship between the Crown and First Nations people of this province is affirmed with the appointment of a proud member of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. A leader, a role model, and an inspiration to so many in this province and beyond our borders. Your Honor, we wish you the very best as you take up your new duties. Congratulations. Thank you again. And I so look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. I would now like to call Mr. Ryan Miley, Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, forward for his remarks.
Good afternoon, Tansi, Janete, Kodahau, bonjour à tous et à toutes. It is a real pleasure to be here with you today, Your Honor, Your Honors, Your Honor Chief Justice, Mr. Premier, Mr. Speaker, National Chief, Vice Chief Lara, President McCallum, all of our colleagues, friends, and relations who are gathered here today for this important day to join in congratulating our new Lieutenant Governor on this, his crowning achievement in a lifetime of public service. A couple of weeks ago, I had a chance to join His Honor for one of his first ceremonies, a ceremony celebrating 130 years of adhesion to Treaty 6 for Montreal Lake Cree Nation, Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, and his First Nation of Lac La Ronge Indian Band. And it was so moving during those events to witness the pride of the community members and provincial and national leaders present in welcoming someone they knew so well and respect so deeply as Saskatchewan's first Indigenous Lieutenant Governor. And as we reflected that day on the spirit and intent of the treaties signed between First Nations and the Crown, it struck me as particularly meaningful that it is someone whose ancestors were part of signing treaty with the Crown who is now, today, the representative of that same Crown. It's a powerful thing and a truly, truly historic day. We also had a few moments that day in Montreal Lake to chat and think back to work we did together a few years ago as part of an advisory group on poverty reduction for the province. And I remember from those meetings how clearly His Honor understood. From his distinguished career in law enforcement and leadership, the communities are safer when we put resources into tackling the upstream causes of crime, into addressing the challenges of poverty, of marginalization, of mental health, and addictions. I was struck at that time by the clarity of his honor's convictions and was encouraged to hear from him now how he intends to carry that vision and purpose forward in his work as Lieutenant Governor. As we, our province's elected representatives, commit to work towards real reconciliation, to honor the treaties, to work to close the gap in income, in health, in education and justice between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, in this province, Your Honor, we're so fortunate to have you in this role at this time, guiding us in that work. And this morning, we started off His Honor's tenure in a good way, with a pipe ceremony in the RCMP teepee on the lawn of Government House, and joining together that way, opposition, government, chiefs, community leaders, in prayer and reflection, was a powerful reminder of how, whatever our differences in opinion, in background, in worldview might be, we can find unity in our common purpose of serving the best interests of the people of this province that we all love. So on behalf of your government's loyal opposition, Your Honor, and addressing you today as the Queen's representative in Saskatchewan, let me say that we stand ready to serve and always eager to engage constructively in the all-important work of making life better for all people in Saskatchewan. Congratulations on your new role. We look forward to working with you and learning from you. Thank you. Inanaskamun.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. Ladies and gentlemen, His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, will now address the congregation.
Well, here we are. Premier, Chief Justice, Dr. Haverstock, Mrs. Solomon Schofield, former Chief Justice Quebec, Mr. Speaker, members of Executive Council, Leader of the Opposition, Minister Goodale, Chief Justice Popescu, and members of the Judiciary, members of the Legislative Assembly, Senators, National Chief Bellegarde, Vice Chief Leroy, President McCollum, relatives, friends, nuahuma kantig totimitik, naskumitna rakidau terapi witap miaka noxkagisigak. Wigamaran mina naskumigo kapi sitoskoya hotanoch. Thank you for being here to support Donna and me today. I just want to reflect momentarily on the pipe ceremony this morning. It was an amazing way to start this special day. And I want to acknowledge the elder and the helper and all those who gathered to share, as was just stated, and reflect on who we are and how we can move forward together in this great province. I am deeply honored to serve in a position that has been filled by many committed individuals, and as mentioned most recently, the Honorable Tom Malloy, a treaty negotiator who made significant contributions to our great country. He also accomplished a great deal in the short time in this office. I offer my sincere condolences to his family and friends. I wish I had a chance to get to know Tom Malloy. I never did meet him, and I'm sure that we would have a lot to talk about. It is an honor to be appointed to this position, but also to have this ceremony in this historic place where we are surrounded by symbols of the crown. The room itself is shaped like a crown, and many carvings here that depict not only the crown but other scenes that we're familiar with here in Canada. They are symbols that remind us of the constitutional monarchy, a form of government that we share with many other successful nations around the world. I'm also grateful to the members of this assembly who took the care to incorporate Indigenous symbols into this room. The beaver pelt and moose hide cushion for the mace, the beaded runner, and the Métis sash, honor First Nations and Métis people. I want to thank members of the Assembly and all who serve in elected office for municipal, rural, and Indigenous communities. I've always admired those who step forward to serve in those positions, and I think they deserve our gratitude. Thank you all for doing that. And so, upon reflection, in terms of what I would share with you, I've had many questions, of course, about maybe how I got here, what I hope to accomplish, and I'm going to speak to that here in a moment. You know, there have been times during my life's journey which has been amazing, quite frankly, and I'll say that here. And I say my journey, but obviously our journey over the years, and I'll get to that too in a minute. But, you know, I had one of those moments of self-reflection, of course, when the Prime Minister called me and offered me the position of the 23rd Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. And I wondered, how did I get to this point? Of course, I accepted, that's why I'm here, but, you know, it's still, I had to pause and reflect on our journey, my journey, and what brought us here. Another moment where I kind of stopped in my tracks, so to speak, was when I left the office of the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Ottawa after being offered the position of Commanding Officer of the RCMP F Division, Saskatchewan, and a position that I always looked up to but never expected to be in. And I'm having one of those moments now, quite frankly, as I look around this chamber and the people who fill it. It's an amazing place, and we are honored to undertake these responsibilities. We've talked a lot about how we can work together. And the basis of that, in my mind at least, is about understanding each other. And as I move forward in this role, I thought, you know, it'd be appropriate for me to share a little bit of my story. I know many of you in this room, which is quite amazing when I look around and see all the familiar faces. But at the same time, people have asked, you know, where I was from, especially when there are other parts of the country. And so I'll share a little bit of that story with you. I was born in La Ronge and raised on the adjacent reserve or community, which is part of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. My mother, brother, and I lived with my grandparents in a small two-room house in a little community called Moran's Hill, and the reserve is fairly large, and there's smaller kind of communities within that. There was no electricity. We had no electricity or running water, which was common in those days. I'm not saying that we were alone in that. Most houses on the reserve in those days didn't have those amenities. But you know what? We didn't know any different. But I'll qualify that because as I started to go to school, I started to see some differences between my community and the community that I went to school in. My grandparents, who spoke only Cree, were a major influence on my upbringing, and their impact remains with me today. They're long gone, but when I reflect back and when I'm thinking about challenges or other things that I come across, they're the first in my mind. They're a generation that we are quickly losing, and they're the generation that we're truly connected to the land, where I can purport to be connected to the land. I live a different life, live in different worlds, so to speak. They were truly connected to the land, and that was their life. And when I reflect on it now, I appreciate it more now than I ever did. So my journey really started very early, when I was about 4 years old. And I was diagnosed with tuberculosis. I was sent away to Fort San. I don't have much memory of that, the odd flashback, but can you imagine a 4-year-old traveling from La Ronge to Fort San in the Qu'Appelle Valley? I spent about a year there and fortunately was cured, I guess, if that's the right word. And I was taken back home after about a year And when the nurse dropped me off at the house, the same house, I apparently said clearly in English, because I'd been speaking Cree prior to that, before I left, I said, I don't live here. And of course, there were some people that were quite upset, and my grandmother at the time just calmed everybody and said, no, don't worry about it, give him time, and sure enough, things were okay. And so school started in La Ronge. We didn't have schools on the reserve back then, but we had to go into the town of La Ronge to go to school. And I was there until grade 2, and then I left for 4 years, another part of my journey, and 4 years in residential school in Prince Albert. And after grade 5, I returned to La Ronge to continue my education and finally graduate. I did fairly well academically, although there's friends here in this room that may challenge that. And sports. But I mention those because, particularly sports, that's what I guess brought our communities together more than anything. Whether it was through hockey or school sports, that's where our reserve community and the non-Indigenous town of La Ronge, it didn't matter, I guess is what I'm getting at. We came together as competitors, as colleagues, as students, and today I have friends here that I grew up with and went to school with and competed against. But I think it just speaks to the ability of people to come together even at a young age. And I think that's an important message. And so to those friends that are here today, thank you for taking time to journey here and be with Donna and I did graduate in La Ronge, grade 12, but I had one of those moments where I'm standing there thinking, why is this? And the why was around the fact that I was the only one in the grade 12 graduating class from the reserve. There were many in the early grades as we went through, but just dropped off as we went through high school, and many reasons. That's a whole other discussion, but it just again shows how maybe things weren't quite right or the way they needed to be. I was encouraged by teachers, particularly one teacher, Dave Friesen. I've hesitated to say names, but he was very supportive. He encouraged me to continue on and go to university, which was really unheard of in my community. I did go to the University of Saskatchewan for a year, but I found it a very isolating experience, not like today where we have many Indigenous students attending higher levels of education everywhere. At that time, there were very few. In fact, I don't recall anybody else, although there probably were. So midway through that year, I decided, I need to get to work. I need to find something that will occupy me in a different way. And I was fortunate enough to be accepted by the RCMP. And about this time, I met a beautiful young lady from Cumberland House. And changed my life, quite frankly, in a positive way. And so we started our journey together in the RCMP, working first in Saskatchewan and then literally across the country from Newfoundland to British Columbia. And I've worked, as was mentioned, I've worked on assignment in every province and territory, and I was fortunate enough to participate in an exchange to the Northern Territory of Australia in my more senior years. And I guess as I share that journey, what did I learn? I learned about people. I learned about this great country that we live in. I learned more about this province. Not to get too deep into it, but I came from La Ronge to Indian Head as my first posting, which was a downer in the sense that we were told, you're signing up for this tremendous journey and there's no way that you're going to stay in your home province. And I go 45 miles east of Regina. But, I went, enjoyed it, but, and I know there's a lot of people here that are closely associated to farming, but we weren't. Although we saw the odd horse here and there because they used them for hauling freight way back in the day, and some remained to run around wild, so to speak. But I didn't know the difference between wild grass and oats and barley, and so I had to look. But by nature, I'm very curious, so I learned. I learned even they're not all just cows or cattle, there's different breeds. Okay, well, I learned about that. But I learned mostly about the people, the hard-working people that were committed to this work, this life, if you will. So I always took that interest of people in the community as we moved across the country, and often at the supper table, we'd talk about that. In Newfoundland, we talked about the fishery, which was something that we related to because of the commercial fishing in the north and making a living off that. And we happened to be in Newfoundland at the time when there was a downturn, really a devastating demise, if you will, of the cod fishery and how people responded to that. But resilience, right? And we hear lots of stories about Newfoundlanders who will go anywhere to work, and we know that, and we see that. But it speaks to their character. From there we went to BC in the logging industry. We became very involved in cross-country skiing with my family, our family, and we met people that had roots in Finland. Not only could they ski, and I could never catch them, but that was because of their work ethic. Just tremendous, tremendous people and hard workers. To Thompson, Manitoba, where we interacted and lived close to miners. And on. But I guess the message here is, what a beautiful, great country that we have. And I haven't even spoken about the geography and what makes up Canada as we see it physically. But the people within that make this country great. The people within Saskatchewan that make this province great. And that's why we're back here. It was always home and always would be. We had no intention of settling anywhere else, although there's many beautiful places just as beautiful. I'm not going to say any more beautiful than particularly northern Saskatchewan. A little bias there. Also, the story pops into my head. I had a chance to go work up in Arviat, as it's called now. It's called Eskimo Point, to help with a search for a missing hunter. And it was March of the year, so spring. Beautiful, no wind, which was unusual. And the snow is so hard packed that you don't leave a track when you walk on it. And this hunter had gone missing there, and we searched for a few days, but without success. But what struck me again were the people, the Inuit. Just amazing strength and resiliency. And you look around at this barren, desolate land, that's my perception, right? And they're thriving. It's like, how do they do it? But you learn from that. You learn that people make do with what they have or what they're presented with. Just absolutely incredible. Anyway, I could go on about stories, that we've experienced, very similar to that. But to move on a bit, there is one more story I need to tell. And it's back to my roots and my own people. I had really the privilege of being invited up to a fishing lodge in northern Saskatchewan, Hatchet Lake Lodge. Two friends are co-owners, and they're here today. And that was a privilege, and the fact that they would invite me up there. But I walked into this dining hall, and on the wall were pictures of people. Of course, I couldn't see until I walked right up. And one picture struck me. It was an elderly couple sitting there, picture being taken. I recognized them. And they were Lizzie and Malachi McLeod from Stanley Mission, Grandmother's Bay area. And that's where they went to trap. And you say, so what? That's 300 miles they had to paddle every fall to go up there and eke out a living off the land. But they didn't know any different. Then in the spring at breakup, they would paddle back another 300 miles. Just find that absolutely incredible. And so I relate that to our skiing, as I briefly mentioned, when I'm out there working hard and trying to ski a long distance and getting to that 10-kilometer mark, starting to weaken, I think about, these people went 300 miles, never mind 10 kilometers. And just, again, it's about the people. So this is all really good, very positive, but again, being observant, I did notice across the country that Indigenous people weren't necessarily as involved in the local economies. Certainly there were some, but not really equitable, if that's the right word, in terms of the populations. And again, I learned from that and questioned, why is that? Things need to change. But again, that's a whole other discussion, but I just thought important to mention today. So back to my lovely wife of 41 years this year, born and raised in Cumberland House, very rooted to her community as well. As we all know or should know, Cumberland House is the oldest permanent settlement in Saskatchewan, having been established in 1774. Many years ago, obviously. And worth mentioning is Cumberland House is also known for contributing the highest per capita number of Indigenous people to the war effort. I didn't know that until I met Donna. In a small, isolated community, and it's just absolutely, again, incredible. Speaks to the people and what they felt they needed to do to contribute to this country, even though, again, maybe they weren't treated as well as they felt they should be. Donna's father was wounded, paid a high price, and suffered for the rest of his life because of that. And thankfully here, just a couple days ago, there was a ceremony to recognize that effort of Métis service people and apologize for the treatment they received, especially when they arrived home. Donna's parents believed strongly in education, and with encouragement, she became a licensed practical nurse. All of her family has done well and continue to contribute to their own communities. Donna and I are very proud of our children, Matthew, Jennifer, of course, Jackson and Grace, the next generation. And we go through cycles, as many would know. We raise our children, provide the supports that we can, and then you get a little break, think, okay, well, that was fun. And then all of a sudden, there's this little storm, or storms of little people that come along, and it's, here we go again. But we love it, and we love our grandchildren. All of us are very active, cross-country skiing, running. Jackson even ran his first cross-country run yesterday in Prince Albert before they left to come here. So, move ahead here. I'm starting to maybe ramble a little bit, but, talk about people and how we were so impacted by those that we worked with, those we met. And I can tell you personally, my success has been based at key moments on that support that I received from individuals, whether it was my grandparents, my mother, my family, teachers, and then when I joined the RCMP, my colleagues, up until the point even when I decided for a year, I needed to go home and kind of reevaluate and maybe work with my community. A commanding officer of the day casually said at a meeting that, if you're ever interested in coming back, you'd be more than welcome. And I know Daryl's here today, but it's just an example of people that at key moments in my life provide that support that helped me achieve what I have. And that value of relationships, I've taken that to my work. We cannot achieve anything that's already been alluded to unless we're willing to come together to work, and that's about relationships. There's no success, there's no building, there's no community building without key relationships within that community, across communities, and in the province. So, like I said, I wouldn't be here without those key relationships, and particularly one, as I've mentioned here, with Donna. And I won't hesitate to say that I wouldn't be here without her. So that speaks to how important, relationships in this one particularly is. So as a member of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band and as a citizen of this great country that I've described briefly, I am deeply honored to represent the Queen of Canada. Her Majesty, as was already spoken about, has devoted her entire life to service. And I hope that I can at least emulate part of that. And now, just in conclusion, in terms of what I would want to focus on, and this is really based on my experiences as I've described, and the reason I talked about even my younger years, just about what I've learned, how things need to change, and what we need to expend some energy on. And that's not to say that people aren't, that governments aren't, that organizations aren't, but I need to continue to support areas that I feel will have the greatest impact. And for me, that's about young people and education, the tremendous value of education, and at least as a starting point for young people, so they're in a position to make decisions that will lead them down a path where they can be proud of who they are and what they do and how they contribute to our communities and our province. In a student first engagement process that I was involved in immediately after leaving the RCMP, I came face to face with the realities of education, the positive, the good, the bad. And certainly there's a lot of good. But it was interesting to facilitate these sessions with young students, and even as young as grade 4 and 5. Very insightful. If you ever have that opportunity, I encourage you to. They're very truthful. They know what they want. They know what's getting in their way. And they know or have some ideas about how that might change. I certainly learned from that. And I know the partner that I worked with, Patricia Prowse, we had many discussions about that. Second part, when you think about students in school and their achievements, what gets in their way? And we hear a lot about it, and it is a reality. It's mental health. And physical health, but mental health seems to come up time and time again. And they're related. If children, young people are constantly having to deal with personal challenges or mental health challenges, then it really blocks their way to be successful in school and to achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. I've also seen it on a professional level in terms of PTSD, the direct impact it has on police officers, first responders, and certainly their families. So difficult challenges, but certainly solutions are achievable. And it is about coming together. It is about supporting each other. And finally, to the word reconciliation. I don't necessarily have that as a priority per se, but I feel that in my approach and my desire to work with people, that message is clear and will continue to be clear, that it is about reconciling. It's about coming together. It's about restoring relationships. And that's the only way that we will progress as a province and as a country. And through that, I've come to the belief, all of that experience, everything that I've learned, that each of us can contribute. There's parts of society, segments of society that just feel isolated, but everybody, literally everybody, can contribute in some way to making sure that this province is the best place to live in the country. So, before I close, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to this ceremony, including the Protocol Office, the Speaker's Office, the Guard of Honor inside and out, the Army Artillery Unit, which we'll hear from shortly, and the musicians. It's going to be loud today with that low cloud cover, but that'll be good. And I know I'm going on a little bit longer probably than has been normal, and I asked about time and said, well, take all the time in the world. And I need to share this story that I was sharing with my staff earlier today. And part of it's about my curious nature, but I had the opportunity many, many years ago to work with Bev Busson, who was a commanding officer at the time. Then I drove her to an event at Wanuskewin. And after we left, she says to me, "Hey, Russ, was I too verbose?" And I didn't know what the word meant. And I said, no, absolutely not. No, you're just fine. And so I don't want to be verbose. So to close this off, I bring you greetings on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, and that's the standard closing of presentations that my predecessors have made, as well as I will. But I've added a Cree version, and I'd like to do that now. Elizabeth II, Canada Gitamak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, immediately after the singing of O Canada, we will leave the chamber and proceed outside for the inspection of the Guard of Honour from 3 Canadian Division and the RCMP. By His Honour, which will also include a 15-gun salute. And regrettably, it may be in your programs, the fly-past won't occur. There's been too much cloud cover. But staff will assist with this movement outdoors. Following the outdoor ceremony, please return to the building for the Speaker's tea, which will be served in both the Legislative Library and room 218. And I'll ask that all guests remain in their places until the following depart the chamber, and it's in this order. First, the Vice-Regal Party, then the Official Party. The Speaker's Party are representatives of the Government of Canada and the Private Secretary to the Lieutenant Governor, His Honour's family, then our MLAs, and finally all of our guests. Thank you all so very much for joining in the installation of the new representative of Her Majesty the Queen in our province. Et au nom du gouvernement de la Saskatchewan, je vous remercie de votre participation à cette cérémonie d'installation de nouveaux représentants de Sa Majesté la Reine dans notre province. Would you please rise for the singing of our national anthem, O Canada? Ladies and gentlemen, their honours, the Honourable Russ Morasti and Mrs. Donna Morasti.